Well, it finally happened. The PlayStation 5 Pro was finally revealed. And it was somewhat of a disappointment. The price is higher than we'd all like, the lack of a disk drive is a criminal shame, and the lack of clear demonstrations of its capabilities does no favors for its overall value proposition. This presentation was such a blunder by Sony Computer Entertainment that a lot of PC gamers began to reinforce the question they have been asking for the past 4 years. What is the point of buying a console? And there is an interesting discussion to be had around this question. But perhaps all the talks about price, accessibility, quality, and value lose sight of the greater potential that now exists because this device has been made. The PS4 Pro only sold one system for every 4 PS4s that were sold. But the PS4 Pro didn't have nearly as many features as the brand new system. The most PlayStation 4 Pro offered was checkerboarded 4K, which was no doubt beneficial with the eventual release of the PS5, but the PS5 Pro has vastly better ray tracing and AI inferencing hardware. These two massive PC staples have now been brought to the consoles. One of the more obviously beneficial new features comes in the form of PlayStation's Spectral Super Resolution. But this AI upscaling technology is only the tip of the iceberg. Starting out, it will probably be comparable to the first iterations of XeSS, but in time it will probably approach DLSS levels of quality, in addition to giving substantially better denoising than we currently have on the PS5. Also, the simple fact that we have AI hardware now being used by game developers on the consoles is wonderful for the potential future of being able to use this technology not just for image quality, but for general game development. Imagine this. What if AI could infer detail so that texture quality remains consistent no matter how close you get to the texture? What if it aided level design with procedural placement of assets? What if it reduced the amount of manpower required to produce quality animation? What if procedural systems could be introduced to add infinite levels of geometric detail? What if modifications could be made to the way NPCs behave to give them more substantially intuitive behavior? NVIDIA kinda sorta did a demonstration talking about something like this, showing that NPCs could intuitively respond to given speech by a given person. But that's not really all that interesting. Sure, it's a neat trick, but nobody actually wants to talk with their own mouth and their own words to an NPC from a video game. The more interesting developments would probably come from the NPCs being able to give more unique missions, if you wanted to have procedurally generated missions, or perhaps having more intuitive enemy responses that are less predictable. But of course, there's more potential even than that. This next suggestion is pure fantasy, but what if it's possible to use AI inference acceleration to emulate PS1, PS2, and PS3 code to the PS5 Pro? Software-based emulation runs into problems, especially when dealing with proprietary designs like the Emotion Engine and the Cell Broadband Engine. The SPUs in the Cell, for instance, are so hard to translate that only the most powerful modern PCs can actually successfully do so. A lot of work has been done with FPGAs to try to compensate for the limitations in software emulation, but most of the work stops with the release of the N64 and the original PlayStation. So what if it was possible for AI accelerators to read the assembly code for each of these systems, and then in real time rewrite the RISC code to match the x86 instruction set? Most people who have tried to use an emulator have often overlooked some of the graphical glitches that have occurred while using them. One of the more notable ones is the black necklace being worn by Tidus in Final Fantasy X. It's supposed to be a silverish gray, and the Digital Foundry team has demonstrated pretty succinctly that even a native port to the PC lacks some of the more interesting attributes of the PlayStation 2, like the atmospheric effects and the particle effects that made the tanker missions so memorable. So clearly, playing the game in its original version would be more ideal. What if it was possible for AI accelerators to read the assembly code for each of these systems, and then, in real time, rewrite the RISC code to match the x86 instruction set? And what if it didn't need to be in real time either? What if you could simply install the game and then watch the AI accelerators recompile all the installed data into a new version that ran natively with the PS5 Pro? Being able to do something like this would dramatically improve the backwards compatibility situation on the PlayStation 5. Also, imagine being able to procedurally add to that code in ways that don't alter the core design of the game, but nevertheless allow for things like AI upscaling and path tracing. RTX Remix promises to do something very similar on the PC with games that are DX8 and below. Imagine if Sony's engineers made it possible to do this for all PlayStation games, though. Can you imagine God of War 2 with ray traced reflections and shadows, or Final Fantasy X and 12 with their lighting completely overhauled? A lot of games have been given a brand new lease on life by having their engines modded to support path tracing. Some of the best examples come in the form of Quake 2, Minecraft, and Super Mario 64 of all things. Speaking of backwards compatibility more generally, imagine being able to play all PS4 games, even the ones that never got a PS4 Pro upgrade, in 4K, with PSSR. Most of us remember Killzone Shadowfall. When it released on the PS4, it ran at a variable frame rate between 30 and 60 frames per second. And although it never received Pro support, playing it on the PlayStation 5 still gave you the opportunity to experience the game at a locked 60 frames per second. It is also worth noting that the PlayStation 4 Pro did give a super sampling option to all PS4 games that were not played in 4K, and PSSR could be used to do something very similar, especially after the technology becomes refined. The situation that happened with the PS4 should not happen with the PS5 though. Sony made it clear that most of the games released on the PlayStation 5 will receive Pro enhancements. And while the first iteration of these enhancements will come in the form of higher resolutions and higher frame rates, the enhancements that come in future games will likely involve much more sophisticated uses of ray tracing, in addition to things like super resolution. Some of them might also feature an 8K mode. Most people don't really care about 8K, but it would be a fun novelty nonetheless. Here's another important thing to point out. Although the PlayStation 4 Pro was for the most part overlooked by PS4 gamers, it still had a tangible positive impact on the backwards compatibility situation for the PlayStation 5. Being able to play games like God of War, or Horizon Zero Dawn, or The Last of Us Part 2 in 4K was incredibly beneficial. And then, of course, most developers would also be kind enough to add patches for their games post-launch, so that added benefits could be enjoyed on the PlayStation 5. It's safe to say that the PlayStation 5 Pro will have a similar impact for the eventual release of the PlayStation 6. Also, speaking of PlayStation 5 Pro features, what if a path tracing mode was one of those features? What if we got something similar to Alan Wake 2, Cyberpunk 2077, and Star Wars Outlaws? Imagine being able to experience that incredibly dynamic, transformative graphical effect on a console. What if that could be uniquely offered by a PlayStation 5 Pro experience? It is true that a lot of gamers will overlook the PS5 Pro because they already have a PS5, and the graphics they get from first-party games are good enough. Actually, let me correct myself. They're not just good enough, they are exceptional. So even though most players will overlook the PS5 Pro, chances are they will still want to replay many of these games when they upgrade to a PlayStation 6 when it eventually releases. And being able to enjoy PS5 Pro features through the PlayStation 6 will be a nice treat once they finally make that upgrade. In the end though, all these ideas are pure speculation. Only time will tell if any of them come to fruition, but the simple fact that these technologies are in the hands of the best developers in the world now, and not 4 years from now, can only be a good thing for the games industry. It is true that the work being done by Sony's internal studios has slowed to a crawl, but that doesn't change the fact that they do the best work in the industry. Nor does it change the fact that they are incredibly creative and incredibly innovative. And I look forward to seeing what the best of the best do to experiment with this technology.
Did I do it? Oh, what is this? What's with all the neon?
Thank you so much to those of you who decided to watch my video. This is another crucial step in my journey towards becoming a content creator. If any of you wish to support me, please subscribe to my channel, and leave a like on my video. If you didn't like my video, please feel free to leave a comment. The comment section is always fun. I hope you all have a good day.